sort of a counter convention to the Republican National Convention out in St. Paul. We were roommates out there, and I guess Ron Paul was so scary to the establishment that they sent around actually spies, and they marked Brad. Brad was, I guess this is a high mark of honor. They marked his car with a little red dot. I don't know how they picked Brad out as a leader, but it's true. He was a leader, and they put a little red dot on his tire. And then one day we were I think it was like the last day of the convention. Brad was walking out of the room, and he had to go back for something unexpectedly, a pair of glasses or something that he forgot. And all of a sudden, he sees a maid coming out of the room, and this woman, I guess, had gone into his computer. And then Brad went up to the desk, and he said, just very casually, he says, so how many guys you got working here and so forth? He kind of used what I would call a Jedi mind trick, and they kind of said, oh, those guys are only here in the daytime. They're not staying overnight or something like that. And but we kind of got a kick out of that. But he is a great leader. His family, as you're about to find out, had a business manufacturing in Worcester, and they provided a good living for many workers for many, many years to the American capitalist system. And this is a speech that I've been on Brad's back about for a long time, because I think Brad will eventually run for U.S. Congress. I don't think he's going to be announcing today, but I said as the economy unfortunately gets worse before it gets better, Americans are going to want to know why we're not manufacturing anything anymore. What do we have to do to get back to being a manufacturing power? A country that doesn't make things anymore, it cannot be a world power. So to tell us exactly what happened in his case and how we can get back to making things and being a manufacturing giant, please welcome Brad Wyatt. Brad.
I brought some props today that I'll get to in a little while. But just to clarify that story, so I went to the front desk, and I was like, I want to get $20 off my bill, something was wrong with the room, whatever. And I said, you guys, and the lady said, well, no, I really can't do it. And so she said, well, I got to check with the manager. I'm like, okay. And so while she's checking, I said to the other guy, you guys must have made a lot of money with all the Secret Service agents staying at the hotel. And she goes, oh, no, they just worked here. They didn't stay here. So I was chuckling about that, because they were floating around everywhere. Anyways, what I want to talk about is, American small business and family. The family unit, that's how small business started. And I feel like my circumstances in life, from the relatives and the parents and grandparents that I have really shaped me. So I actually want to start, a little back in time. I want to start with my grandfather, Roger Nowak. His parents were from Poland, and he was the first one to get an education and graduate from high school in his family. And I remember the story he told me that his father couldn't go to the graduation because he had to wear the suit coat, and they only had one suit coat in the family. And he worked really hard. He was 6'5", over 300 pounds. He was a boxer, and you know what he taught me was just to fight. He loved watching boxing on TV, and ever since then I hated it. I preferred baseball. But I'd like, come on, the Red Sox. No, there's a boxing fight. So he always wanted to watch boxing. But the key part about it was he was a fighter. He persevered. It was tough back then, and he worked hard. And I'll begin with my favorite. Begin with my favorite sign that I saw: "Help fight poverty, work." Okay. He built his own house in the mid-40s, and he added on a garage and another garage, and then he put machinery and equipment in there and hired people and had a plastics company. And, I don't think you could get the zoning laws to do that these days. But he created jobs and had a great family. And what he did was he built Mr. Bubbles. Plastics was a huge industry, and he could design the molds and figure it out. He never went to college. He just graduated from high school, but he worked hard. And so he would make different things with plastic and molds, and they would make them down in the garage. Make clothespins and funnels and lots of interesting things. Now I have to tell you a funny story about this funnel. This is a funnel cap right here. And I would see my grandfather working down there all the time, and it was a good example for me to see how hard he worked. And I just learned a lot just by watching him. But so he designed and invented this funnel cap. He had 40 patents. Pretty neat, and we sold them around the country. Well then, you know, this is back in the 70s. There was a company called Hollywood Accessories, and they went over to China and copied our product. Now, we have a patent on it. You know, shouldn't be allowed to do that. I mean, if you believe in honesty and justice in the American way, we should be able to go to court and fix that problem. So we went to court, our family. I was just a child, but I could hear my parents talking about it all the time. And if any of you have ever been in a lawsuit before, you'll understand it eats at you. The years tick by as you wait for justice or what you think is justice. And we lost when we went down there. And I found out that Henry Kissinger's brother was the person who owned the company. You know what? The game is fixed. I realized it when I was young, and I'm just, everywhere I look, it's fixed. So we had these funnels. He made some plastic clothespins. I just think it's really neat looking at how we used to make stuff in this world. So he was a manufacturer. He made stuff, and I always wanted to make stuff. Unfortunately, I trended more towards the computer side, and I wrote computer programs, and I still fix and make computers and stuff. But I always wanted to make something. So at the end of the day, I think he really lived the American dream. He was an inventor. He had a wonderful family, good job, his own business, and he really did. I was lucky enough in the late 80s to go over to Poland and to see what Poland was like. And we visited one of our relatives. And he had a job. I guess he was a professor. And we went in this building where he lived. And we had to walk up 5 flights of stairs. No electricity. And then we had some food there, and we each had one hot dog. Which, for a growing kid, you just say, well, why? And then you realize that they don't have a lot of food over there. And then when you go to Warsaw and you see how just dirty and polluted it is, there's no real property rights and nobody really cares. And, you know, that really set me when I was in my, you know, late teenage years that, you know, America is a great place. We have freedom, and we don't want to be like that. And I really feel like, unfortunately, our liberties are taken away, our economic and our civil liberties, and we're trending towards that. And we've got to stop the madness and tell people that socialism is not a good solution. Capitalism is the best method the world has ever seen to create products and deliver products and services, and we got to keep going on that message. Okay, so that's it about my grandfather from Poland. Now my father, okay, not on my grandfather's side, but my father, he was an orphan. He didn't even have parents. He was brought up by nuns in a orphanage out in Springfield, and then I guess some great aunts somehow were able to get him back, but he never even graduated from high school. He always said that the nuns spoke French, and he didn't understand French, so he couldn't learn in school. I don't know if I believe that or not, but that's what he told me, why he didn't graduate. So anyways, after he was old enough, he joined the service, you know, where he could learn, and he became an accountant and learned all about numbers. And I think the key trait here, again, is perseverance. He fought. Just like my grandfather was a fighter, he was a fighter. It's so easy in this world to just give up and let the government take care of everything. Not back then, and we've got to make sure that people don't take that attitude now. You've got to keep fighting, and you've got to keep working hard. So he worked hard. He started a business with a couple other guys. He took some risks. He sacrificed a lot of personal time, Little League games with me and everything else. And he built a very successful manufacturing company. And what we did was we manufactured diamond cutting tools. This is a diamond blade. You would use it to cut concrete or granite or countertops. It basically would replace abrasive blades. In Worcester, Massachusetts, where we're from, it was one of the leaders with Norton, St. Gobain, and everybody else. And I would say in the 70s, he bought some lasers, and he was able to laser weld the segment on, and that kept the segment on better. And I think there were only about 5 in the world, and he had bought 1 or 2 of them. And so we were one of the leaders in the world at making diamond blades. He would travel over to Iran and Iraq and exchange goods and services and literally bring back a pile of cash. You know, he would go over and bring the stuff. It really was amazing to me as a kid. But he traveled a lot and he sacrificed. But he worked hard. And he was really proud of American-made products. He was so proud that he made this logo, Made Right in America. And I agree with that. Okay? This is what we need to do more of. We need to start making stuff. Okay? If we rely on everybody else, we're going to be in big trouble, and we'll get to that. So my grandfather, my father, he was very proud of American-made products, and I think he led a wonderful life. He used to give away patriotic flyers about the Constitution in the 70s with his diamond blades. It was really beautiful. I gave a couple of them to John, and when I was cleaning out his desk, I saw all those in there, and I was just, almost in tears going, wow, he really cared about liberty even before I was even paying attention. So that's the real basis of what I have is I like to make things because my father and my grandfather liked to make things, and that's what I wanted to do in life. So I graduated from college, and then I moved back home, and I started working at the factory. And I wanted to get my hands dirty. I wanted to know everybody in the factory because it's like a family. Nobody ever left. And so I started working, and I worked in the diamond room and the cold press and the hot press and the carbon room and the laser room, the break-in room. And it was a great experience. I understood the whole company. And then I was lucky enough to write computer programs to track the jobs through the factory. And, at one point we had 119 people and 20 million in sales. That's a lot of stuff to track. And we really were able to make some improvements, and I really felt fulfilled doing that. However, by doing that, we had to account for it. And so I wrote an accounting system as well. And I really got into the accounting and the management side of the business from then on. And it was great because I knew how everything sort of worked. The problem was, China. China started shipping products into our country. And the products, they were okay. Ours were probably a little better at the time, but they kept getting theirs better. And China had some state subsidies to everything they shipped in. They would get a kickback for exporting products, so we couldn't even compete on price. So eventually, we had an anti-dumping lawsuit against Chinese manufacturers and Korean manufacturers, and the whole industry banded together because we were all losing market share. And so it went down to federal court, and it took years, just like it always does. And finally, on political sides, we lost. And they said that there's no dumping. They're not fixing the prices. And it's interesting because there were 5 people appointed to that commission, 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and it went right along party lines. The Democrats wanted more protectionism, the Republicans wanted more free trade, and the Republicans won. And I have to wonder, where is the madness? What is going on? The problem is not that. The problem is too much regulation, litigation, and taxation in this country, and neither one of the parties want to address the true problems to create jobs and create and manufacture things in this country. So I feel like we're suffocated by excessive, bloated federal regulations that just put a burden on our shop. For instance, if you own a business, you must hire people and fire people. It comes to a point when you hire somebody, you really want to talk to a lawyer before you hire somebody to make sure you do it right. Because that will make sure that you won't get sued because you didn't hire this guy because of his age, or you didn't hire this guy because she's a woman, or whatever. This attorney, Ralph Abbott, I must have been his best buddy because I was writing checks to him all the time when I was hiring somebody. And then when you fire somebody, you better have all your or lay somebody off, you better dot your I's and cross your T's as to the reasons why. Because if they didn't sue you when you were hiring them, they're definitely going to try and get you on the way out. You're a target if you're a business because you have capital, and they go after you. And then there are liability issues. That whole example of some lady who spilled a coffee and sued and got $600,000, the same thing happens in my business. Somebody uses one of those diamond blades. It's like driving a car. You should read the instruction manual and know what you're doing. They're a dangerous tool. You could lose a finger, so you should be careful with what you're doing. But if people don't use the product right, they end up suing you, even though you haven't done anything wrong and it wasn't a defect. And here's the thing. In America, I almost believe we're guilty first because we have to pay a lawyer, pay a retainer, do due diligence and discovery, and turn over all our records to the other side. Do you know how much cost and time that is in aggravation? I could be spending time solving my customers' problems, making better products in sales and growing my company. Instead, I'm wasting it doing up paperwork for who I sold stuff to for the past 4 years, how it worked, who made it, and everything else. So, we've got personnel issues, we've got liability issues, and I haven't even started on patent infringement issues. From my first experience with the funnel caps, I was very disappointed in the patent office. That's an understatement. Very, very disappointed. However, now, if I wanted to come out with a product, guess what? Somebody probably had a patent on it. I kid you not. We had a shape like this, and we moved it a little bit, and somebody sent me a letter and said, you infringed my shape. And I said, Ed, I talked to you about it. Yours is symmetrical, mine is asymmetrical. And you said it was okay. And Ed goes, I thought it was, but then I realized it wasn't. I said, Ed, that was 1.5 years ago. Now you want me to turn over all my records? You're a competitor. for a year and a half to see who I'm selling to? He goes, yep, but I tell you what you can do. You can turn over all your records, pay a lawyer a $25,000 retainer fee, spend another 25 grand setting everything up, or you could just write me a check for 50 grand right now and I'll license it to you. Okay? And let me tell you, that is how business works. Okay? That is a problem, and that needs to get solved. So, you know, me being the tough, abrasive guy, I said to him, I said, you know, Ed, I don't think this is right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sue you. I'm going to say that your product is the same thing, and I'm going to make sure I do it in my backyard, so you're going to have to go from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts all the time and defend yourself. And Ed just sort of looked at me and winked. He goes, kid, you don't know what you're doing. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you know what? I'm a Costa Rican company. If you win, you can come down and get my donkey. Okay? And you know what? He's absolutely right. The laws protect those who know how to use the system. Okay? That's a problem that needs solved, and that's real tort reform. Okay, now, let's get to profits, if we're lucky enough to have profits, after everything else I've dealt with. Okay? There's hidden taxes. There's unemployment insurance rates, which if you guys have been following the news, all the states are now broke, and so now they're raising that. So if you want to hire somebody, it's going to cost you more. How foolish is that? I don't even want to talk about all the safety and environmental regulations that we have to deal with. I've got the building inspector coming in. This just happened like 2 months ago. You need to put the fire extinguishers up higher. I've got the fire people coming in telling me you got to put them lower so a handicap can get them. Okay? I don't know what to do. Have you ever read the book on environmental regulations? It's like this thick, and this is volume 1 of like volume 50. Okay? This is nuts. No matter what you do, you're in violation of some environmental or safety law. It's absolutely out of control. And then we talk about rising energy costs. Okay? Massachusetts has the second highest electric costs in the country. Why is that? Are we dumber than everybody else? I always thought we had a good education system here. Why is our electric so much? Well, maybe it has to do with that Department of Energy in Washington. Maybe they're not doing their job. Probably not. They're not doing their job anyway, and it's unconstitutional. But this state just rubber stamps all the agreements with the electric companies. You know, National Grid was sold to an English company. It's not even locally owned, and they just raise the rates with all these leveraged buyouts through the years. And so my rates just go through the roof. When I sold my company, I looked at selling to different people. I mean, obviously, I want to look at as many solutions as possible when I'm selling my company. And there was a company in Tennessee that was very seriously interested. So they flew up, and they looked at the numbers with me, and they were in shock. They were in shock at how much I paid for electric. It's about half that down in Tennessee. So if you got to wonder why you can't make stuff in Massachusetts, the energy costs are out of control. And that brings me to the next part. The second thing the company in Tennessee couldn't handle were my health care costs. Out of the roof in Massachusetts. Now, why is that? And I hate to say it, but that Romney Care thing was horrible. Forcing people to buy health insurance, that's just nuts. I mean, think about it. If I forced everybody to buy a diamond blade, guess what I could do to my prices of diamond blades? I could skyrocket them. Did these people think that if you force somebody to buy something with supply and demand, the prices will go down? I don't think these politicians have ever studied economics, and that's basic economics. So then we've got volatile raw material costs. I haven't even gotten to that yet. Okay? You know, this diamond blade right here, it's made out of steel. Okay? It's made out of diamonds and metals. Cobalt is very popular. We use silver to weld sometimes the segments. Well, in 2006, you know, I was buying a lot of steel, and I was buying some from American companies, but to be competitive, I had to buy some from Chinese companies. So I would buy a lot of the standard 12 and 14-inch blanks from China. I had no problem doing that. You know, my competitors were doing it. It was the only way I was going to stay in business. But then in 2006, I got a letter in the mail from my Chinese supplier. It goes, "Dear Mr. Wyatt, thank you for your business. We really appreciate it. However, we no longer will be accepting U.S. dollars. You must pay in euros." And you know, that really got me thinking, and that is really what set me off on this course that I'm on right now. Okay? I've seen John McManus's wonderful dollars and cents videos, and I think we've got to get everybody to understand what the Federal Reserve and what Washington is doing to our economy and our basis of money. So anyways, the volatile raw materials killed me, and the U.S. economic policies, while hidden, are killing me. So I want to solve my customer's problem and make a profit. Instead, I spend more time talking to accountants, lawyers, just to make simple decisions. And I have a friend who's a venture capitalist. Oh, thank you very much. I have a friend who's a venture capitalist. He says when you look at businesses, you look at two types, not two types of businesses. The employees in a business, there's two types that are worthwhile. You produce or you sell. That's what adds value. You're producing something or you're selling something. Those are the key employees and the key things that need to be done in a company. Everything else is just noise and paperwork. And trying to run a business in this country, it just seems like I spend more time on noise than everything else. So let's get down to free trade, because I mean we have free trade, right? We've got NAFTA. I mean that must help. That NAFTA was horrible. Ross Perot, I loved his charts. He was right. There's a big sucking sound. All of our jobs are disappearing. Free trade is an excellent concept, but we don't have free trade. Is it free trade when I have all the noise of accounting rules, of environmental stuff, safety stuff? It's just not free trade. The EPA put a booth next to my building to measure the air output and quality. Okay? I don't think they do that in China. And by the way, I passed, and they never had a problem again, but they probably spent 15 grand putting that booth there that's still there. That just irritates me. So anyway, I see some of these people coming out, and they're trying to recycle the same ideas. Newt Gingrich, he voted for NAFTA. I mean, that's just horrible. He can never have my support. There's some people that, they say the right things and then they act differently, and I think we have to be very wary. And Bill Clinton, he made China a favored nation. I mean, that's just horrible. Did he think that this was going to happen? Probably. Did he care? No. He wanted the campaign contributions. So we got to be very wary about people who say they're going to help create jobs and see if they're really doing it in the right way. Next. So running a business, just for those of you who don't know, it's sort of fun. You're losing money. So what you do is on Monday, you look at your cash receipts. You say, oh boy, I need another 10 grand to make payroll. So you take your home equity checkbook, you write it out, you put it in, you make your payroll money, they take it on Tuesday, and then you sit there and say, please have the money come in on Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday. Well, that works for a while, and you're trying to make everything work, but eventually you realize that you're losing the battle. You are definitely losing the battle. So I sold the company, and I'm saddened by it, and it was a really tough decision, and it really hurt me to have to do it, but you really didn't have a choice because of what happened to our country. And I see this happening to all these other companies. When I open up the paper, every week I see some company that was around for 30, 40 years going out of business. And it really saddens me because those businesses are the backbone of this country. Those people who work together as a family, who sacrifice, and they're all disappearing. So I'm very sad about that. Here's another funny one, profit sharing plan. Our company had a profit sharing plan, and that sounds like a great idea, right? When I shut down the profit sharing plan, I couldn't find 4 employees. One of them had $120,000 in there. Do you know how hard it is to follow the rules and shut down a plan when you can't find people? The bank didn't want to take responsibility. Nobody wants to take responsibility for this because you're going to get sued. And that's because there's a potential that you could get sued. And it literally took about a year and a half before I could actually transfer that money to the state so that they could handle it. And that's just another example of some of the poor legislation we have. So anyway, a solution. I've been talking about the problems, and I've got a bird's eye view of all the problems, but we need some solutions. And I think the solution is very simple. We need to champion our Constitution. Get the federal government out of business, out of our lives. That's the truth. In particular, I think we have to fight to restore the respect and appreciation of American small businesses. Okay? So many times I see the evil business person. If you watch a movie, it's always the evil rich capitalist. We need to change that attitude. Capitalism is a great system. Okay? We need to replace athlete, rapper, American Idol as goals for our children. Okay? You talk to them, they want to be the next Barry Bonds or the next American Idol person. We need to teach them that you need to create wealth and prosperity, and this is how you do it. So just as my ancestors persevered, and my dad fought, and my grandfather fought, I'm going to continue to fight because I know what's right. And when you know what's right, you have to follow through on your conviction. Just curiously, last week the Worcester City Council met on the tax rate for our building. Now, to give you a little history, Worcester has a dual tax rate because the citizens vote and the businesses don't. So the tax rate for a citizen is 12 points. The business is 28 points. It's higher than Boston. I happen to own a very large building in the city, and that irked me. So I got fed up. And the day of the meeting, I sent an email out to all 6 city councilmen. And I said, as a business owner and property owner, I need to know what to do. Should I abandon my building and have another eyesore? Should I sell it to a nonprofit because they'll pay a lot because they won't have to pay the taxes? Because I was paying over 50 grand a year in taxes. Or should I borrow money and invest in the community and try to build value? So I sent this to all the city councilors. And they went and they voted on the tax rate, and they basically ignored me. And they voted to keep it at 12 and raise it 33 now. So I'm paying more in taxes. But the funny part was, that letter I sent to the city council, somehow somebody forwarded it along. So it ended up on a blog. And I signed it, Bradford Wyatt, Osgood Bradley Building, and I put my email address on the bottom. I got a half dozen letters from business owners saying I completely agree with you. That makes me happy to know that I'm not alone out there fighting. And there's a lot of other people, just like the JBS here and all over the country. There's tons of people out here. We just have to find a way to join together and actually get good people elected that understand. So one by one, we've got to turn the tide. When I was in Los Angeles last time, I met one of my fraternity brothers, and I gave him a copy of the Creature from Jekyll Island. Told me he loved it, and he sent me 1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. Said, it's not much of a trade-off. I really enjoyed the book, but at least you'll have something you can show around. I was going to bring it, but my son was having fun showing it to his friends. It's actually 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars.
Hang on to them, you never know.
That's a good point. So I think in our circle of trust, we all have to try and find people we know, our neighbors, and try and just, I hate to use the word educate because that sounds like they're ignorant about what's going on, but we have to try to lead them to the truth and to get them to open their eyes. So my answer to small businesses, Washington needs to get out of the way. They need to change their direction from an ideology that supports poverty-type programs and replace it with one with a solid foundation of liberty that will encourage prosperity. Simple things they could do: eliminate capital gains, the estate tax. By the way, my parents are thinking of moving to Florida. Massachusetts doesn't even match the federal estate tax. So you get whacked if you live in Massachusetts. But more than getting whacked if you live in Massachusetts, you would have to file. If you had to pay taxes in Massachusetts but not the federal level, you'd have to file. But if you just went down to Florida and you were under the federal level, you wouldn't have to disclose or even file. So Massachusetts needs to make some serious changes. The matching Social Security tax that businesses pay that our employees just don't know about, they need to see that more, and they need to get rid of it. And I think we really have to engage in tort reform and encourage his personal responsibility because it really is out of control. It really is out of control. Anyways, that's my talk about business and family, and thank you for listening.